Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. It's been a busy weekend in the world of sports. Some good, some bad. I'm joined by my co-host, Boxing Hall of Fame writer and sports guru, Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Hey, good, Keith. Hey, this is an unusual good morning. A lot of times you say good morning on the air, and I'm thinking, why are you saying good morning now? We said good morning before the show, but we didn't even say good morning before the show, Keith. We really started getting into the lead topic, and I'm all talked out about the lead topic, but of course I can talk about it more because it is of high interest.
Yeah, you buried the lead there. Jack, tired of talking, is the lead here, I think, which I don't think that'll ever happen. But good morning, Jack.
Hey, good morning, Keith. The lead topic's not the Jets, by the way.
The lead topic is not the Jets. We'll get to the NFL because there's some big news there, too. Big games, lots of things happening. But the lead topic for me has got to be Lane Kiffin. This whole thing has been going on for about 4 weeks. Is he going to Florida? Is he going to LSU? And then Florida just kind of said, we're not getting involved. We're done. Pretty much it was LSU. It went down to an ultimatum basically being put down by Ole Miss saying, you're making a decision after the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. And even after that, we waited 48 hours almost for a decision when, by all reports now, a decision had been made by Lane Kiffin a week ago. He accepted verbally a contract with Ole Miss for, I think, $90 million for 7 years. He's the highest paid coach in college football on a yearly basis as we speak. But it's not so much that he left. It's the way that he left. It's the way that he dragged this out. It's the way that, for 48 hours almost after the Egg Bowl, he was negotiating not to stay as the coach long term, but to say, I'm leaving, but I want to coach this team through the playoff. And Ole Miss said, you can't do that. And they argued back and forth. Well, they don't want him to do it. Again, there's some other situations where coaches are staying through the playoff or the end of the team season. But they don't play in the same league. They don't recruit the same players. And there's no way Ole Miss could let him stay. And then Kiffin started throwing around not accusations, but threats. I'm taking all my coaches with me. I'm going to contact players as soon as the portal opens. And, I won't do all this stuff. If you let me stay, we'll put guardrails up. That was his term. There'll be guardrails so that I don't do anything that is not in the best interest of Ole Miss. There's no guardrails they could put up. He'd be a walking billboard for LSU for the next 6 weeks.
Sometimes I wonder, Kate, about organizations. It could be a sports franchise, a college. If a coach is under contract, why don't they just enforce the contract? And what's the coach going to do?
Well,
if he doesn't coach, he doesn't get paid. But as soon as he's ready to come back to coaching, okay, you're in the contract to us. You have to coach for us. What happened? Imagine if Ole Miss called his bluff that way. They'd have an interim coach being told when Lane Kiffin comes back, he's under contract. He's not going anywhere. We're not allowing him to go anywhere. And they take him to court and they enforce that. They can enforce that. The courts would side with the university if that were the case. Why are we playing these games?
They wouldn't side with them because most of these contracts have language written in it that they can leave, but they've got to pay X amount to the university to go, right? So whatever his buyout was probably maybe 30 or 40 million. LSU and Lane Kiffin are going to make arrangements to pay Ole Miss that money. I don't remember what his buyout was, but same as when they fire a coach, they got to pay him. If you leave, you've got to pay the university what the buyout is. And it's all in the language. So you've got an out. Every coach who signs one of these contracts has an out. So you couldn't legally keep it.
And that's the problem. And you complained about that in other sports with ball players where they can opt out at a certain point of the contract. They have an option to opt out, but the team doesn't. The university doesn't. There's something off there. But in the case of Lane Kiffin, I have mixed feelings, quite honestly, Keith. If Ole Miss was mediocre this year, let's say they were 5-7 or thereabouts, chances are Ole Miss would want to move on from him. Anyway, they wouldn't have loyalty to Lane Kiffin. Let's say he gave his all to the University of Ole Miss. The bottom line is winning because he's very successful. People are thinking he should show loyalty to the university. He's entitled to go elsewhere if he wants, especially if he has an opt-out, a buyout clause. He's entitled to do what he wants.
Yeah. You know what it is? And in so many cases, it's not so much what you actually did. It's the way it all goes down. And the way this went down was ugly. He knew he was leaving probably weeks ago. And the same way with Saban. And remember when Saban was in Miami and he lied to the press? What's he going to say, though? What are these guys going to say? Are you going to Alabama? Are you going to LSU? You're going to sit there like 2 months before the fact and say, yeah, of course I am. No, you're going to keep the press at bay. He also had a couple of altercations with sports writers the last couple of days as well. He asked a guy called him a hoe for some reason. I have no idea why. And he said, you want to call me a hoe? Let's go inside here and we'll see how that works out. He basically threatened the guy at the back of the end zone.
No, the journalist, wait, was that a journalist who said that?
It was. He wrote an article. And
I would suspend that journalist or whatever. The journalist has no excuse to say that. No reason, whatever. You can't doing your job. You have to be objective. You could have certain feelings towards him. You could feel that way towards Lane Kiffin, but that's not how you phrase a question.
You know, it's fitting that this was going to happen eventually, right? That a team who's going to be competing for a national championship with the 12-team playoff, and they're going to, well, that's another story. Let me get to that in a second. Right now, there's a 99% chance they're going to make the playoff. So he's leaving a team that's got a chance to win the national championship. This rarely has happened. You brought up an incident in NBA, NCAA basketball. Jesus, almost 40 years ago now.
Coach Bishop before the Fab Five.
Bill Frieder from Michigan took the job at Arizona State and wanted to stay and coach Michigan through the NCAA tournament. And the AD said no, and Steve Fisher stepped in and won a national championship and got the permanent job. Ole Miss has hired a permanent coach, not an interim, which is probably the best thing they can do to stem the flow of players leaving and players' discontentment even through this playoff run, and coaches, and hired Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator, as the full-time coach. That's a good move.
That is a great move, Keith, because there's going to be some discontent with the players at Ole Miss, and a lot of them are going to feel a loyalty towards Lane Kiffin. And might go into the transfer portal to join him. And Lane Kiffin's going to want to get back at Ole Miss as much as he can, hurt him as much as he can. And the way you hurt him is taking players with you and weakening the Ole Miss team. But if the Ole Miss team has one of their own, their defensive coordinator, that's coaching familiarity, you can get those players to stay.
I think, and this is so Lane Kiffin, it's not ironic that if this was going to happen to a coach, it happened to Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin coached the Raiders for 20 games as the youngest coach in NFL history, got fired. Al Davis didn't like him. He famously fought with Al Davis forever. Al Davis thought he was an arrogant little.
Al Davis didn't pay him, as it turned out, and Lane Kiffin finally threw in the towel. Part of that, too, was the Raiders drafting Jamarcus Russell, who turned out to be a bust. They gave him a big contract. And that was a historic contract because it set the rookie scale. After that, the NFL set up a rookie scale. They didn't want any more Jamarcus Russell cases where rookies get unlimited money. And Lane Kiffin, to his credit, didn't want Jamarcus Russell. Al Davis did. Lane Kiffin was actually correct. I get the feeling, Keith, if you want a prediction here, this story is not over by a long shot. Because I think at some point, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to reemerge. Lane Kiffin is going to put in some calls to maybe at least a couple of the Ole Miss players who he wants to come to LSU. And it's going to, it's against the rules, it's interference, but I get that feeling. He's going to do it through a third party. One way or the other, he's going to get word to them.
He's only got to wait a month. January 3rd, he can talk to all the players he wants. That's when the portal opens.
I think he's going to try to get the jump on it. That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
Because by now, the players at Ole Miss either going to be committed to staying at Ole Miss or they're not. Now, I think with them retaining the defensive coordinator, making him the head coach, I think that's going to create a stable situation at Ole Miss as far as players not leaving in the transfer portal.
I'm sure when he met with the team yesterday, there was a couple of guys he tapped on the shoulder and said, "We'll be chatting." So
yeah, exactly.
Phone, so it is crazy. And again, Lane Kiffin, not just the Raiders, goes to Tennessee, leaves after one season. They basically chase him out of town with pitchforks and torches. He goes to USC, has moderate success for a while, but then he gets fired on the tarmac as they're getting ready to leave to play a game. He goes to Alabama and kind of rehabs his reputation as the OC and takes a job at Florida Atlantic, and Saban fired him the week before the championship game. Wouldn't let him coach, and now he ends up here. So Lane Kiffin was the perfect candidate for this.
And LSU is going to be a lightning rod type school. If they don't win, and he's combative with members of the media, so on, it's going to be a national story going forward. But of course, he's a good coach, and chances are he's going to bring LSU back to prominence.
The leash is so much shorter for him now. The leash was been long. He could have stayed at Ole Miss and made a bunch of money. He was already making a bunch of money. They were going to commit NIL money to him. That was one of the big sticking points, getting NIL money to continue to bring good players in. But he could stay there. If he found a way to win one national championship, maybe just get to a national championship game, they'd have built a statue for him at Ole Miss. He could have stayed there as long as he wants. Now he's going to a place that, in my mind, has unreasonable expectations of winning national championships every year. And it's not reasonable at LSU. This isn't Alabama. This isn't the Oklahomas from years ago, and it's going to be hard to do that.
Why do you think he's doing it?
I think he thinks he's got a better chance to win a national championship at LSU. Same reason Brian Kelly went. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame because he thought he had a better chance to win a national championship at LSU. How'd that work out? He had a better chance at Notre Dame, as it turned out. It's crazy. And Donna, it shouldn't be allowed, but as I was telling Jack, in the contracts, they have these outs. So, I mean, they need to – it's going to be up to the ADs. First of all, they've got to change some of these big buyouts so when they fire coaches, they aren't paying them $70 million to go away. And they also have to not leave them out where they can pay their way out of their contract. I think you're going to start seeing shorter contracts. Even this contract's only 7 years, not 12. So they're starting to harness it a little bit.
What gets me too, you mean to tell me the universities or even any sports franchise, they can't find an equivalent coach? We know Lane Kiffin's a very good coach, but you mean to tell me of all the candidates, you can't find someone who would do a similar job? I mean, but they keep searching for these big names because it's Lane Kiffin. I mean, there's so many guys out there. I understand it's always hit and miss. We see in the NFL the difference that Mike Vrabel made. He was a big splash hiring with the Patriots, but then you see the lack of difference that Pete Carroll made with the Raiders, and he was a big splash hiring for them. And we see that in college football all the time. All the time in college football, these big splash hirings. But a lot of the time, Keith, when they make a big hiring like this, they're going to a university that has a lot of pedigree as is. That's going to basically do the same no matter who the coach is.
Yeah, and to Can's point, and good morning, Can. Good to have you from Bottom Line Sports. Good to have you with us. Ken, Ole Miss can make a run to the playoffs. That's the ironic part of this. They can make a run of the playoffs. And here's the thing I'm wondering about, though, with the playoff. Tuesday's release of the college football poll rankings, the playoff rankings, is going to be very interesting. I think Ole Miss is at 7 right now. I'm curious whether this has an effect on how they're looked at by the committee. They may get dropped down. They may be in danger of even falling out if certain things happen in championship weekend, because we have a precedent with a player 2 years ago. If you remember, Florida State goes undefeated in a Power 4 conference, the ACC. Their quarterback goes down for the year in the last game of the season, and they left them out of the 14 playoff only because their quarterback got hurt. Now, if you lose a coach who's very integral to your success, Is the committee going to take that into account?
It'll work just the opposite, Keith. It's going to work just the opposite. We've talked about committees making decisions based sometimes on sentiment, like we talked about the Notre Dame factor, Alabama. They're always going to look out for that name recognition. Lane Kiffin at this moment is a villain. He's a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, they're going to look out for Ole Miss.
That's possible.
They're going to want Ole Miss to get in. Because not to allow Ole Miss to get in after what Lane Kiffin did, it's a bad look.
I would say so, but it's
and Ole Miss has they've earned their way in anyway.
Well, Florida State had earned their way in too, but they said they weren't one of the best 4 teams then. So is Ole Miss as good a team without Lane Kiffin is the question. That's going to be the question.
I think without Lane Kiffin, they nearly have to put him in. I really do. I think that's where the sentiment's going to lie.
This playoff committee, it can be very fickle. So I think Tuesday you'll know what their thoughts are Tuesday. If they drop from 7 after beating up Mississippi State pretty well, and
they're not going to drop. They're not dropping.
I'm interested. I'm not saying they will. I'm just interested in what can happen. As far as the money goes, the way I
say money, he wasn't going to. Ole Miss was upping the ante.
Ole Miss was willing to match whatever LSU paid. The NIL money is more at LSU. That was a big factor, I think. Jack mentioned could be family considerations too. Maybe they don't want to live in Jackson, Mississippi anymore. Maybe they want to.
You can't say that. Lane Kiffin, in all fairness to him, he can't say my family would rather live somewhere else. I mean, that gives you a terrible look, and there's a terrible backlash.
By the way, you asked whether he was a great guy or not. I mean, his off the field life has been a bit of a mess the last few years too. Him and his wife split. He was.
Well, I don't think I asked was he a great guy. I mean,
no. You had asked if he was. I didn't say you were. You said he was. You asked if he was. I mean, he's had some issues. What their issues were between them, I don't know. But they did split up, him and his wife. He had a young girlfriend at Ole Miss for the last 2 or 3 years. Now his wife and he have reconciled, and his wife and his daughter were the ones flying around to LSU in Florida. It's just
you want to know something, Keith? I wasn't even aware of that, and that's a difference maker. Because if Lane Kiffin truly loves his wife and his family, and he had an affair at Ole Miss, the wife might want a new beginning.
Yeah.
They got to get out of Ole Miss.
It's possible.
And maybe Lane Kiffin has that hanging over his head. It's either the Ole Miss job or her. And if that's the situation, it's fully understandable that he'd stick with his wife over the university, and he gets a job elsewhere. So maybe there's more to it than he cares to say. But with that said, you don't try to take all the coaches with you and hurt the university.
Well, Donna, you're right. It's sad. Unfortunately, sports is not like the real world, right? People get paid for not working, and we don't get paid for not working.
Well, no, Ole Miss isn't going to pay Lane Kiffin now. He's leaving.
No, she's talking about the fact that these coaches get paid money and they fire them. But if she were to get fired, she wouldn't get paid.
Well, yeah, of course, Donna. But that's why Ole Miss didn't fire Lane Kiffin through all the turmoil. Yeah. Even though they were fed up with him towards the end, because they'd have to pay him technically if they did. LSU could then pay him less money, and Ole Miss would have had to pay the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, they just got through a messy situation with Brian Kelly. They were trying to not pay Brian Kelly his $52 million payout. They wanted to say they were firing him for cause, not just firing him. So
Brian Kelly benefited by this Lane Kiffin situation because they couldn't hire Lane Kiffin LSU until they formally settled with Brian Kelly. Yeah. So at the end, LSU caved and gave him all the money that was due Brian Kelly on the contract because they wouldn't have been able to move on, to Lane Kiffin in that situation.
100%. And Brian Kelly has this interesting clause, which I've never heard of. It's almost like it's unemployment insurance because he's getting paid his $50+ million, but he has to he's got to show and document that he's actively looking for work. like he's. What is
this, unemployment insurance? You can't collect unless you're showing that you're trying to get a job.
You got to report every week and show the jobs he
got to report. Yeah. Who's asking you? Can you imagine Brian Kelly is showing this rinky-dink university or whatever, like Division III. I mean, listen, they could hold him to it and say you have to take a Division III coaching job.
Yeah, well, I looked for the job of manager at Burger King, but they weren't paying.
Yeah.
I didn't take it. So anyway, and Donna says if that's the case, give him credit. If you're the family, if he's taking care of his family, then give him credit. I personally don't think that's a big consideration, but we don't know. It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, no, you're right on that, Donna. Yeah, I mean, to take the coaches and try to hurt Ole Miss, now that's crossing a line. But him wanting to move on from Ole Miss because he had it supposedly, allegedly, according to what you said, Keith, an affair with someone else. Now he's back together.
I didn't say an affair. I said they split up and he had a new girlfriend. I don't know what order they came.
Well, okay. That's stronger than an affair. An affair comes and goes. You got a new girlfriend. I mean, that lasts a little while, supposedly.
It was a few years.
Event,
yeah, they were.
I mean,
years.
You'd like to see someone leave with a semblance of dignity.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin's motivation for wanting to finish the season, you kind of wonder about that. On one end, maybe he really did want to see it through and try to win a national championship. Or maybe he just wanted to last the distance of the season.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit devious. He wanted to last it out so he would, gets closer to the transfer portal. This way could take players with him and keep a certain continuity, even though he'd be at another university.
You know what? Coaches can do this. Players can have freedom and do whatever they want. You know who I really feel bad for? The fan base, because Mississippi's having what arguably is the best season they've ever had. And it could be a historic season if they were to get on a run and win the national championship. And I think this is all a distraction that's going to cause that to come crashing down quickly in a playoff myself. And I feel bad for the fan base, but nobody ever cares about that. So, sorry, I wasn't knocking managers at Burger King. So I was knocking.
Well, Keith isn't the most sensitive guy, you know.
Well, Don, I know that you were probably well paid in the 90s, as you said, and she is laughing. I doubt that it's going to match his $51 million buyout, though. So just saying. Anyway, let's move on to the NFL, where the news is a little different because we've got football to talk about. Let me put this up. It's not the biggest game, but Rick had put a comment up earlier, and I didn't want to forget it. So Rick had said good morning, and he said Pittsburgh was chanting "Fire Tomlin" last night. They looked pathetic. Rodgers calls out his wide receivers after the game. Shocking there, right? He's hurt, didn't play well. I didn't think Pittsburgh would win this game. That division is a mess right now. You think it's time for Mike Tomlin to go? This is a bad.
No, it's not time for Mike Tomlin. Has had something like 17 consecutive winning seasons. Now, I know they haven't won a playoff game in about 9 years or thereabouts.
At least
I kind of understand that. But how many franchises have had that level of consistency the way the Steelers have? But let's see what happens the rest of the year. The Steelers are 6-6. The Ravens are 6-6. They play next week. If the Steelers win, they're in first place. I mean, when are you going to fire Tomlin? Let's say the fans got their wish. You're going to fire him right now? Would that make any sense at all?
No.
That would make absolutely no sense. Wait till the end of the season. See the way it plays out. Last season, they finished dreadfully. They lost their last 6 in a row. They finished dreadfully at the end of last season. And I have a feeling we're going to get that again this year. They're going to finish dreadfully because I don't think they have a very good team. I think they have a team that overachieved early in the season.
Yep.
But let's see the way the rest of the year plays out. The one area that disappoints me is the Steelers defense. They've just had a poor year.
Yeah.
Way below expectations.
Yeah, that was their personality, was their defense for decades, and it hasn't been for a little bit. By the way, firing Tomlin, you got to remember, this team is still under the control of the Rooney family. The Rooney family hasn't fired a coach in almost 60 years. They haven't fired
a coach. They are remarkable. Chuck No, Bill Cowher.
Left on alone.
Let me say this about Tomlin. Does any coach outside of maybe Bill Belichick look unhappier than Mike Tomlin. He strikes me as a nice person, a very nice person,
Yeah.
but he doesn't seem to be enjoying himself. It seems like he's addicted to the job. He got nothing else to do, so he's coaching. He just doesn't look happy. He looks like burned out.
And I think that's gotten worse as the years have gone on. I think earlier in his career, he still had that stone face, but you could see there were times he'd smile on the field and seemed to be having more enjoyment. I do think, that said, I think it's very possible Mike Tomlin walks away from this job after this year.
I'd call him into the office. I'm the Rooney family. Sit down with them and ask them, look, are you really happy? I mean, are you burned out or what? If you really want to coach, we're going to stick with you. But if you have a lack of enthusiasm, if it's wearing on you, it's best to walk away from it. We'll give you another job in the organization. We'll try to find something for you, whatever. We'll make you head of scouting or whatever. Listen, Mike Tomlin can walk away for a year. He couldn't come back to the Steelers if that were the case. He'd unlikely be able to come back. But Mike Tomlin would easily get a coaching job elsewhere, if not in the NFL, at a Division I university. Easily. I
think he takes a little sabbatical, and they'll have teams lining up to hire him. And Rodgers, by the way, Don, has just run out of fingers to point. He's got no more fingers to point. He's pointed so many fingers.
Yeah. I mean, what I don't like about what Rodgers did, he didn't have to do it publicly.
Oh.
Then of course Rodgers blames himself, but that doesn't cut it to me. Don't say, well, the receiver should have ran this route, but he feels terrible about it, worse than I do. He'll learn from it. Don't tell people he ran the wrong route. Say I've got to get the message better across, as far as running the routes to receivers. I'm not getting the message across strong enough. I got to do a better job, and leave it at that. I mean, it seems like he's kind of thrown too many guys under the bus in a subtle way.
I'm going to tell you, as I move on from there, or we move on from there, I want to. The most surprising result for me yesterday was, and I'll throw Sonia a bone, was Carolina beating the Rams yesterday.
Yeah,
nice win for them. I think they're back of the Bucs now, even though the Bucs won yesterday. Nice win for Carolina. They that was a back and forth game for a long time at the end, and they played. Their defense didn't play great, but the offense came alive, which they haven't been scoring a lot of points against a really good Rams defense.
That was a great win for the Panthers, and Bryce Young is developing. Bryce Young is the classic case of how the NFL used to be with a quarterback, where it would take a quarterback, 3-4 years to really fully develop into an efficient starter. And Bryce Young needed all those games, but he's getting there. He was excellent yesterday. He struggled a little at times early in the year, but Bryce Young is showing, he's a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at some point, but he's certainly showing that he should be the Panther quarterback of the future.
Agreed. And Donna had the Rams. I didn't bet the game. I almost did. I'm glad I didn't yesterday because I thought this would be an easy win for the Rams. Nice. And again, I know
Rams had an off game. I mean, not to take credit away from the Panthers. Let's be honest about it. In the NFL, you're playing 17 games. You're not going to be up for every game. The Rams have been enjoying such great success, winning. Yeah, they're going to Carolina. I don't want to say it was a trap game for them, but it wasn't a game I think they were overly motivated for.
One thing people don't pay enough attention to is West Coast teams traveling east and playing at that 1:00 window, because it's always it is a trap in a lot of ways because people don't think about it. It's a tough spot. You look over the years, I guarantee you West Coast teams have struggled mightily when they come east. And it happened a few weeks ago in Jacksonville. So it happens.
They haven't struggled when they play the Jets.
I said NFL teams, Jack. I didn't say the Jets.
Jets won yesterday, so But the Panthers, but getting back to that just very quickly with the Panthers, they're healthy, they're full strength, they're playing well. Okay, kudos to them. A monster victory for the Panthers yesterday. That was of the highest quality. I give the Panthers an A+ for winning the game. The Buccaneers, on the other hand, they struggled to beat the Saints, but they got the job done eventually, winning 2017.
Cardinals.
The Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals. I'm sorry, the Dolphins beat the Saints. Arizona Cardinals. But the Buccaneers are going to be healthier as the year goes along, and unless they suffer other injuries, by playoff time, they're going to be very healthy. By the end of the season, they're going to be healthy. The Buccaneers are not going to lose that division. They're going to win that division. Panthers are not overtaking them. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I think a big development, well, the last few weeks is getting healthy. You said Chris Goodwin came back a few weeks ago. Bucky Irvin gets back in for the first time.
Mike Evans will even be there at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Bucky Irvin is a huge comeback, I think, for that team.
Baker Mayfield was hurting yesterday against the Cardinals. They eked out a victory after losing 3 straight. The Bucs, any type of win was good. They didn't have to dominate, and they didn't dominate. But by the end of the year, the Bucs are going to be primed.
Donna brings up this game. I'll bring this game up because the Commanders are struggling, but Broncos with their 9th win in a row to match the Patriots, the 2 hottest teams in football. Broncos defense is coming along. I don't know what the score was last night, actually. I went to
27-26.
They gave up some points, but a nice win for them on the road, I believe.
The Commanders had a chance to win it at the end when they went for the 2-point conversion. Yeah. And Mariota's pass was blocked. Was that the right move in overtime to go for the 2-point conversion or to kick the extra point? And the game would have continued then, but then would have gotten the ball, but the game may have ended in a tie.
You're 3-8. I'd go for the 2.
Yeah, I'm not knocking it. Knocking it.
I think more teams.
It depends how you think you're going to do in overtime.
Yeah. I think more teams should play to win anyway. They don't just, it depends. Especially if you think your defense is gassed or whatnot, you might as well just go for 2 and try to end the game. I mean, that's what I would do.
Some of these decisions are baffling, Keith. Watching the Jet game, I'm exasperated about some of the decisions, Aaron Glenn has made. It's at the end of the game. The Jets have a chance to win it on a field goal. So they then positioned to line up for a 51-yard field goal, a makeable field goal for Nick Folk, okay, to win the game. So they used their last timeout, the Jets, with 12 seconds left, okay, 12 seconds left. Why don't they let the time clock run down to 3? It's 4th down, and they call timeout with 12 seconds. Why don't they let it run down to 3 seconds, and then go for the field goal? Because if you kick the field goal with 12 seconds, you still might be leaving maybe 6 seconds on the clock. And it's always possible the Falcons could have gotten a sideline pass and been able to go for a 62-yard of their own or something. There's always that little possibility. So what did the Jets do? They called a timeout 12 seconds, and they tried to get the Falcons to jump offside on the next play. But the Jets jump offside.
That's just
now it's a 56-yard field goal. Nick Folk happened to make it. How do you like that? But I'm exasperated.
I watched Nick Folk kick for a long time, and he was very consistent, but not long. I guarantee he's kicked the 2 longest field goals of his career this year with the Jets. He kicked a 58-yarder early in the year. He's never kicked over 50. He was very inconsistent with the Patriots.
Early in the game came short, but this one was kicked so low. It looked like he missed it. It was a line drive kick, but somehow it got over the crossbar.
Like a knuckleball. It only got in by about that much of the bottom of the crossbar. That's all counts, though.
That matters.
So as a fan, I'm sitting with some Jet fans yesterday as we're watching the 1:00 games, and they're all pissed off that they won. I'm like, how do you guys root against your team? Because they want the number 1 pick. And I'm like, why would you ever root against your team? I don't understand it. we talk about this. Players won't tank, right? I agree 100%. They go out, they want to win. Organizations can want to lose, but you can't just go out there and say, okay, go lose. Coaches want to win too. Their jobs depend on it. But fans, I don't understand fans who don't root for their team to win. Draft pick.
There's no consensus number one pick. There's no generational talent out there.
I would never.
You're gonna want. This isn't the NBA where you know LeBron James is waiting for you with the first overall pick or whatever. He didn't play college ball. I'm just giving an example. But I mean, just let the chips fall where they may at the draft. There's plenty of quality there. I mean, the quarterbacks coming out this year aren't considered the greatest prospects. You know, if I'm the Jets and I'm the owner, I let the scouting department, you know, the coaches, the GM know this. I'm willing to bite the bullet for one more year. I don't want the best college quarterback available. I want a college quarterback who could be a true franchise quarterback. Don't take someone just because he's the best of what's available. I mean, it's like going into a clothing store. You're going to take the best available sweater if you really don't like it a great deal. No. Wait till you get to another store, another day, whatever.
100% right. I had a debate with my own buddy who's a Patriot fan like I am, but he's like the Jets should want the number one. He was rooting for the Jets not to get the number one pick because he's worried about him taking Mendoza. And I said, Mendoza's a nice quarterback. He's not a franchise-changing quarterback.
Exactly. I mean, I let the chips fall with it. I mean, the Jets have 2 number ones this year, 3 number ones next year. If I'm the Jets, I trade one of my number ones this year for someone else's number one next year. So I have 4 number ones next year, and I really kill it next year with 4 number ones, a couple of number 2s. Oh,
just got to pick them right. That's all.
Just got to pick them right. Easier said than done.
Another big game yesterday, maybe the biggest game on the card for in my mind, was the Colts and Texans yesterday, and it was a defensive battle for the most part. Some interesting plays and calls, and but the Texans at the end prevail with C.J. Stroud back in the lineup, 20-16. Daniel Jones. Not bad, but not great. 2 touchdowns.
I'm going to give him some slack, Keith, and I haven't always given him slack.
Today,
you don't know he's been playing hurt, okay? In all fairness to him, we don't know how much that's compromised him.
Yep.
And I keep apologizing, not to Daniel Jones or what I think, because I never make myself clear when it comes to Daniel Jones. Because early in the season, everyone was making a big deal of Daniel Jones, MVP candidate. I thought he was completely overhyped early in the year, completely overhyped because it was Jonathan Taylor that was the engine that made the Colt machine go, not Daniel Jones. But with that said, Daniel Jones should be the Colt quarterback next year. He could perhaps be their franchise quarterback. I'm not saying no, but I think it would be ludicrous if they gave him Jordan Love type money. I think the Packers were way out of line giving Jordan Love that type of money, but Jordan Love might validate that eventually. So yesterday, I mean, Daniel Jones didn't go out and win the game. We could see between him and C.J. Stroud who was the best quarterback on the field. C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback on the field. And I don't care whether Daniel Jones is 100% healthy. He's not quite that good, but he's good enough to lead the Colts going into the future. I believe that if you put the right team around him, and they put the right team around him this year, good offensive line, Tyler Warren, a quality tight end they drafted, Michael Pittman, arguably the best running back, in the NFL, certainly this year, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, they put the right team around them, and he won early, and it wasn't his fault they lost yesterday. He won against the best defense in the NFL.
Did you see it was a key part in the game, I thought, too. They had a 4th and 1 where they were going for it around, 45 or 40-yard line of the Texans, and Jones is in the shotgun, and Tyler Warren comes up behind the center to take the snap, and he never gets the ball. Nobody, I don't know who was snapping the ball to who, but a big botched play there, I thought, for the Colts. Too many of these teams are just trying to outsmart, the other team. Just play. You got the best running back in football. It's 4th and 1. Only one guy should be getting the ball there. Not Ty, and Ty Warren shouldn't be taking a snap from center in a big moment in the game. I don't understand what these coaches are thinking sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you, in the defense impressed me. There's one sequence where the Texans had 3rd down and less than a yard to go. They tried 2 tush pushes in a row and got stopped.
Nobody can do it.
Kind of impressed. And it kind of made me think of the Eagles, where we want to ban the tush push because they've done it so great. And it got me thinking, maybe it's how you execute it. I want to ban for safety reasons, not for execution reasons.
Yeah.
But let me make myself clear. Because you saw Dean, a guy in the middle of that, weight is going both ways. That's a safety issue to me.
Well, I don't know if maybe we've seen guys hurt. I don't know, but I get it. That's different than wanting to ban it because nobody can stop it. When you're the only one that can do it, nobody else. Buffalo does it pretty good, but Eagles, everybody else. I've watched the Patriots try it, and I'm like, please don't do this anymore. They can't do it. They don't know how to do it.
I don't think one player should be allowed to push another player on his team forward. You have that rule. You're not allowed to carry a guy over the end zone.
No,
why not? If a guy falls down, you pick him up. You're on the team. Lift him over the line.
I don't think there'd be anything to dissuade that. It's in the rules. You can help a guy. It used to be you couldn't. College and pros, you could not push a guy forward at all. Maybe they need to put the rule back in.
Yeah.
Remember the famous it was the Bush push, Notre Dame and USC, when Charlie Weiss was a coach at Notre Dame. Matt Leinart was going for a quarterback sneak, and he was stuffed, and you couldn't do it at the time. It was in the rules. You couldn't do it, and the refs didn't call it. He pushed Leinart into the end zone. The rule was changed shortly after that, actually. So, interesting.
Charlie Weiss segue to New England. They host the Giants tonight.
Big game. Listen, the Giants always give the Patriots fits. Even when they stink, they give the Patriots fits. And I'll give the Giants credit for one thing. They're playing hard. They're playing, they haven't given up. They haven't quit. The coaches have them ready to play, and they've been blowing games late, yes. But, they're giving teams some fits and some scares. And I'm a little worried about this. It's at home, so I'm happy about that.
It's a serious trap game for the Patriots, I feel. And it's obviously a very big game with Denver winning yesterday. Who would have thought that these games at the end of the year, who would have thought at the beginning of the year, certainly not me, I would have been the last one to think it, that the Patriots need to keep winning these games so they could get a bye in the playoffs.
Again, we talked about a lot. As the season goes on, your perspective and your expectations change, right? Mine have changed a lot. I'd have been happy at 9-8. Get me in the playoffs, I lose a game. That's
9-8 even don't get you in the playoffs. You would have been, I think, satisfied all in all. And
yeah, I would have been.
I thought the Pats would go like 6-11 this year, but I thought the following year with thinking in terms of 10-7 in the playoff position. That's what I was kind of thinking about.
Well, now I'm going to be disappointed without a deep run in the playoffs. So that tells you how perspective changes. So changes a lot. What other games of interest were there for you yesterday, Jack? I'm trying to go through we talked about the Bills already. 49ers and Browns. So Shedeur Sanders, okay. He's not the reason they got creamed yet. He's got to
take accountability. Look, it's a second start. You lose 23-8. If he played better, could it have made a difference?
Well, sure it would. Sure would.
Yeah, I'm not giving the guy slack only because it's a second game.
100%.
Shedeur played like an inexperienced rookie for the most part. He didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But again, he's a rookie. He needs a number of games to learn. This is a guy who's only had reps with the starting squad in practice for a couple of weeks when you think of it.
And he has been named the QB1 again for next week. So I think it's clear to the coaching staff if they want to continue to be the coaching staff, they need to find out what Shedeur's got.
Well, I think it could be a little more than that. Kevin Stefanski, I think maybe needs a little more evidence to go back to Dylan Gabriel because public perception plays a big role in it, the ownership too. And if they're going to if he went back to Dylan Gabriel now, which I actually thought he was going to do, people were going to say, well, Shador only had 2 starts. He's 1-1, and you're benching him 1 game. They want to see more. They play next week the Tennessee Titans. If they lose to the lowly Tennessee Titans and Shador is mediocre, that's 3 games already. He's 1-2.
I would expect him to be mediocre at this point, though. What would you expect him to be more than mediocre to okay? I mean, he's not going to go out there and be Dan Marino. Nobody would expect that, or should
They're playing Tennessee next week.
Well, they should win that game.
Right, exactly. If they lose to Tennessee and Shador is so-so, that's reason to go back to Dylan Gabriel in the sense the coaching staff is going to want to evaluate Dylan Gabriel. They're talking about evaluating Shador Sanders now, and everyone accepts that, you know. And if they want to evaluate Dylan Gabriel, evaluate both guys. How, you know, there's an elephant in the room with the Browns, a big elephant. Is Deshaun Watson going to be ready to play by the end of the season? Because I can see Deshaun Watson maybe making a start the last game or 2 if he's ready.
That's an elephant for me if I'm in charge.
He's on the contract. He's on the contract next season.
Yes,
Can
I know.
you imagine Deshaun Watson starts the last game or 2 and looks great? Imagine next season, the Browns will probably decide we got 3 quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson will be our starter, and we're ready with Shador and Dylan to bring them in. And the quarterback soap opera is even going to be stronger maybe next season than it was this season.
If I'm the Browns, there's no way Deshaun Watson's on this roster next year.
You're not, okay, you're paying them a fortune of money. Well, it's easy for you to say it's not your money, Keith.
No, if it was my money, I'd say I spent it badly on a bad person and a guy who can't stay healthy. 2 bad combinations. He needs to be out of my quarterback room today.
He's been working out with the team. Supposedly, he's been very supportive, and he hasn't been a negative influence in the slightest inside the locker room. He's tried to be helpful.
My problems with Deshaun Watson are not football related.
I know, but he played games for the Browns after his issues came out. Keep that in mind. He's not like first returning to the Browns after the issues.
I understand. But I wouldn't even speak his name. I can't believe I spoke his name. I made a pact with myself not even say his name. Anyway, another big story here is Myles Garrett gets another sack. He's going to obliterate. He's going to obliterate the sack record, don't you think?
I think Myles Garrett, position for position. Now, we talk about boxing pound for pound, who's the best fighter in the world. Position for position. We never use that term in football. Position for position in the NFL. Myles Garrett is the best player in the NFL.
I couldn't make it up.
I defy you to tell me one other player in one other position that's better at his position than Myles Garrett is at his. You could mention a guy like a Jonathan Taylor, the type of year he's having, but I'd give an edge to Myles Garrett.
I won't argue with that one with you at all because I think he is the best player position for position. And because they're also game planning to take him out of the game, and he doesn't allow that to happen. They run right at him. They do everything they can to make sure he can't disrupt the pass.
He stops to run as well.
He's not
a one-trick pony who's only a great pass rusher.
Great player for sure. Yeah, and he's gotten past that whole helmet incident. I'm glad he did.
Oh, you know what? That helmet incident with Mason Rudolph when he accused Mason Rudolph of using the N-word 1 week later. No, you have tape. No one believed Myles Garrett. Everyone thought Myles Garrett was lying. And Myles Garrett even probably had some remorse over making the remark because the following season they played the Steelers, and when the game was over, he ran across the field to shake Mason Rudolph's hand.
Yeah.
But with that said, Myles Garrett did get a raw deal with a 4-game suspension. Mason Rudolph was charging at Myles Garrett. Yeah. Myles Garrett swung the helmet. That was wrong. That was dangerous. But Mason Rudolph to get off scot-free in that, Myles Garrett to get a 4-game suspension. I didn't like that.
He was just a kid at the time, did a stupid thing. He should have just
admitted it. Yeah. It doesn't. reflect on him the type of person that Myles Garrett is. Not at all. I mean,
also apparently a Schroeder Sanders fan, so that may play into that a little bit.
Which is big because he's the leader of that team, Myles Garrett. So if he really has a certain player's back, the coaching staff takes notice.
So anyway, we're heading to.
By the way, just very quickly, the Colts did fall out of first place. We talked about them a little while ago. That's astonishing.
Actually,
they look like they were headed to a magical season, and now they're not in the wild card position.
You know what?
Wild?
I think the Texans might win that division. They're one game back.
The Colts, when all is said and done, they might actually be a third place team with 4 teams in that division.
Possible.
And they haven't played bad the last couple of weeks. They lost a couple of tight games against good teams, and it shows you how fortunes change.
Very,
but there's certain things, Keith, that people don't analyze or study well enough. Even you take a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who remarkably won 2 high-quality games against the Eagles, coming back from 21-0 and then beating the Chiefs. The Cowboys are a long shot to make the playoffs, a long shot. They have to make up 2 games against a number of teams that are decent teams and only 5 games left to play. The Cowboys have to go basically 4-1, and a couple other teams have to go 2-3. That's going to be a tough try. And don't tell me, well, the Cowboys can go 5-0. Since when have the Cowboys become such a top-notch team that we could be talking about 5-0? Come on.
I mean, you could talk about the Lions running the table, maybe not the Cowboys. I don't think so.
The Lions are in serious danger not making the playoffs. I'm going to tell you, Thursday's game, Cowboys and Lions, is massive for both teams. I mean, the Lions on the brink of, being an extreme long shot to make the playoffs.
I would say 3 teams are getting in from the West, unless they totally collapse. You got 3 teams tied at 9 wins over there.
Between the Bears and Packers, one wins the division, one is going to be a wild card. We know that. Look at Seattle, and the 49ers and Rams.
Bears, 5 wins. 5 wins.
At least one of those teams is going to be in the playoffs, maybe all 3. I mean, you just look at the records. It's a lot. The Lions are a dangerous team if they could get the playoffs, but they got to win Thursday night.
Danny makes it in for the end of the show to get momentum in for Jack.
Well, they lost 2 in a row. I mean,
Jack doesn't like to talk about everything. He talks about everything the momentum is, but he won't say the word.
No, it's how you're playing at the time going into the playoffs.
Momentum, good or bad.
No. But it can momentum is good as just as good as the next kickoff.
There's good and bad momentum, but if you say it depends how you're playing when you get into the playoffs, that's what momentum is.
Momentum applies more in basketball, where a team is going to have a wave where they all of a sudden go on a run at 12, 14 points in a row, and another team kind of lets down. It's kind of like a wave that happens suddenly.
It happens.
But I don't want to hear the momentum. We see this all the time. These teams with momentum going into the playoffs, they get eliminated. Come on.
A guy who's a school teacher like you not know the definition of this word, and a guy as uneducated as me can? I don't get it. Jeez, man. Danny, help me out here. Good God. Anyway, let's do this real quick before we break. I do want to give you a plug for the show tonight and see what's going on boxing. But we haven't talked baseball, and we're going to start talking baseball because the winter meetings start the end of this week, and things will start to happen. But things have already happened. How does Dylan Cease get a $210 million contract for 7 years from the Blue Jays? Did I miss something about Dylan Cease?
$30 million a year coming over from the Padres. Is he a good pickup? Yeah, he's an absolutely good pickup.
$3 million.
7 years. You mean to tell me that after 5 years, after 4 years, the Blue Jays are going to be satisfied with that contract?
No way.
I hate this term, and you've used it, Keith. You've been guilty of it. You use terms like this. oh, you pay for 7 years, but if you get 5 good years out of him, it's a
They all know it.
No, it isn't.
They all know.
Listen, I've been wrong sometimes in contracts. I got to admit it, and I got to take accountability, okay? Just like I take credit on things, I got to take accountability. When the Mets signed Francisco Lindor to a 10-year contract at something like $31 million a year, whatever, 11 years actually at $31 million a year, I thought it was an awful contract, awful. I said he's going to be good for 5-6 years. And then the last few years of the contract will be a mess. That might still be the case. It might still be the case.
Might.
But if he goes into the Hall of Fame wearing the Met uniform, it makes it worth it. Okay? A Hall of Fame is a Met. If the Mets win one World Series with him there, it's worth it at the end. So sometimes you don't know, like, with some of these contracts. Look at Zach Wheeler with the Mets. Good quality pitcher, very good. The Mets didn't want to give him the money. The Phillies did. It's been a great relationship, Wheeler, with the Phillies. He's been, outstanding pitcher for them when he's been healthy, which has been most of the time.
Listen, I'm surprised at this contract. I thought this postseason might go a little slowly with big signings because of the labor issues that are still hanging over spring training and next season.
Dylan Cease took this deal because he's not going to get it anywhere else. He had to jump on it.
No, I'm not saying him. I mean, in general, I didn't think we'd see a lot of action unless there was some movement in the labor situation.
Well, I'm curious about the Alonso contract with the Mets.
Yeah.
I'm watching SNY, and I have very little patience with some of these analysts. They have to make a prediction what Alonso is going to be offered, what the Mets should offer him. And one of them holds up the sign, $185 million for 5 years. Are you out of your mind? $37.5 million a year. I want to make a comment with these commentators. Let me just go back to football. Jonathan Vilma yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I heard you.
I texted you on that.
That was hilarious.
The Jets, he's talking about the Jets quarterback situation for next year. Never mind that Vilma's a little giddy, like Tyrod Taylor might be the answer. He didn't say that straight out, but he's all giddy. He says, the Jets could use maybe a couple of, I'm paraphrasing, a couple of first-round draft choices to go after either Brock Purdy or Mac Jones. Now, Brock Purdy, I can understand the logic, at least. I can understand that. Mac Jones, are you out of your blankety-blank mind that the Jets would offer 2 number 1 first-round picks for Mac Jones? Are you kidding me?
You told me
how
how
out of your mind? I would fire the GM immediately. I would fire him immediately if he gave 2 number 1s for Mac Jones. Are you out of your mind?
If the 49ers you should call right away.
If he offered 1 second-round pick for Mac Jones, I would call him into my office and say, "You're absolutely sure you know what you're doing?" Like, I would be like, Mac Jones, who the 49ers got for what, a 6th-round pick thereabouts? I mean, give me a break. 2 number 1s. You're out of your mind.
You loved the guy when the Patriots picked him number 14. You loved him. I remember doing that.
One good year. He's devalued Keith. I just got a new car.
I
People
know.
love their car when they get a new car. But if you ride and put enough miles on it, it doesn't have the same value. The same dollar value.
With Jack's analogies, I think we know he's looking for a new sweater and a new car, I think, from today's show. That's what I take away from today's show. Jack, any boxing news you want to throw out there before
we have a Glove Fist tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We have a junior welterweight on Bryce Mills from upstate New York, Liverpool.
Oh,
You're
cool.
familiar with Liverpool?
Liverpool's out by Syracuse, yeah.
Right. From upstate New York, a fighter we're having on with his agent/manager, Russell Peltz. They're both going to be on the show tonight. Russell Peltz, legendary promoter from Philadelphia, who's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and they'll be on with Frank Laterza and myself. But of course, Frank is going to want to talk football in the beginning of the show. You can't stop him. And even though his Miami Dolphins have won 3 in a row, he's going to downplay it and tell us how bad they are.
Well, it tells how Ohio State's going out in the first round of the playoff. Indiana's going to beat them.
He hates Ohio State. That's why he bets on them to win, because he wants to lose his money.
And Friday, we'll take a look at all the conference championship games, Jack and I. Jack, I think, by the way, just to give you a heads up, instead of our normal 3 picks, we're going to pick all the conference championship games. So take a look. We're going to pick them all Friday. All right. That'll give you a chance to catch up. So
okay. Fair enough.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Check out Jack and Frank tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll be on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern with the College Football Huddle. We'll have lots to talk about after the new poll comes out, the Lane Kiffin stuff, all the new coaches. And we'll also be on with the Unprofessional Professional Sports Show at 6 prior to that. So, guys, have a great Monday, and we'll see you here Friday with Jack and I on Friday morning. Bye-bye.